Hola! Today we're gonna take a look at Ningen Shikkaku, or No Longer Human, or Human Lost in English. It is by Furuya, Usamaru, and it was published between 2009 and 2011. You might already know that I love Furuya, but you might not know that I also like literature. The manga is, of course, based on the famous novel by Dazai Osamu, Ningen Shikkaku. This one right here. I really enjoyed this book as well, although it's a little hard to read sometimes because of its archaic language. In this video, however, I won't be making too many comparisons between the novel and the manga, or talk too much about the differences between the two, only if I think it's really necessary, because I really want to judge the manga as a work on its own. It's a dark story, so I'm not sure if I should put a trigger warning in, but since a lot of the dark stuff happens a little later in the book and the manga, I don't think I'll be talking about it too much. But just so you know, it's gonna be a little dark, so... And also the title Ningen Shikkaku literally means like losing the qualifications to be a human, so that really tells you everything. The story originally takes place during the Showa period, and it's told via the diary entries of the main character. In Furuya's version, it takes place in contemporary Japan, where Furuya himself at the beginning of the story is actually looking for something new to write about. And so instead of a diary, he finds a website one night where the diary is written as a blog, sort of. So it's the diary of a man called Oba Yozo. And on a website, he also finds 3 photos of Yozo. One where he's 6 years old and looks like a creepy kid, one where he's 25 and looks like an old man, and one that depicts him seemingly in the prime of his life as a beautiful 17-year-old boy. From this point on, we see Yozo's story, but Furuya occasionally appears before or after a chapter again. So the story in the manga starts with Yozo as a high schooler, where he's the class clown. He says he deliberately acts this way to gain the favor of the people around him. And it's true, everyone likes him. Even the teachers are weak when faced with his charm. Despite being a little comedian, he's actually really good at school, but from time to time he pretends like he doesn't know stuff or doesn't get it, because if you're too perfect, people won't like you anymore. So at 17, he's mastered the art of deception. The only place where he doesn't act this way is the art school preparation school. Like, I don't know how it's called in English, but you know, it's like a school that prepares you for art college or whatever. There he meets a guy called Horiki, and the two quickly become friends. Horiki takes Yozo out to smoke and drink and enjoy the company of women. Yozo is popular wherever he goes, and no girl can sleep with him without catching feelings, it seems. And that really stresses him out, and nothing ever comes out of it because he's too scared of people. He also lives in a nice expensive apartment that his father pays for, so if you look at it from the outside, his life seems to be going pretty well. And this all changes, however, when his father stops paying for everything. For the first time of his life. God damn it. Hard to English. For the first time in his life, he's forced to really get his life together through his own strength. But instead of doing that, he thought it's easier to just leech off of a girl he met at an extreme leftist organization. This relationship gets him into trouble as well, though, to the point where he has to flee his new small apartment. With no place to go, he goes to a hostess club where a woman takes pity on him. And before meeting this woman, his downfall already began. But it's their meeting that makes everything spiral out of control for good. And from this point on, it's just one tragedy after the other, but that's what I think you should read for yourselves. I don't really like spoiling too much of a story, because my wish is for you guys to read the stuff I talk about as well, so it's a little hard to talk about the story without revealing too much. But I wanted to make this video for people who haven't read it yet, so that's why I won't be going too much into detail when it comes to what happens and so on. But yeah, I'll try. So first of all, there are a lot of direct quotes from the book, and that's really nice. I really don't know how it is in the English version though. I don't even know if this has been published in English, like officially. But here, in between chapters, you actually have whole passages from the book, and that is pretty cool. Even the first line of the book, which is super epic, I think most Japanese people know it, is also kept in, which is really cool. The idea of it being an online diary is also really good, I think. Also, the fact that Furuya inserted himself into the manga is kind of cute. But now let's talk a little bit about Yozo. I feel like Furuya did a good job at painting a certain picture of this character. He puts a lot of emphasis on the relationship between Yozo and his father, which becomes especially clear when Yozo is delusional later in the manga and his dad appears to him as Hitler, which was not in the book, by the way. In any case, this makes it seem like his dad was like the main reason for Yozo's failing as a human. And that's, I think, the main difference between the manga and the book. Like in the book, his family life wasn't the best, alright? But it never seemed to me as if that was what really ruined him, you know? It felt more like he just had this extreme fear of people. And it seemed much more without a reason, really. But yeah, that's just a side note. Throughout the story, Yozo blames anything but himself for the things that happen. Sometimes it's money, either because he doesn't have it or later because he does. Sometimes it's his dick, sometimes it's his dad, whatever. Not once does he think that life is the way it is because of his own actions. The main problem, I think, is that he's so paralyzed by fear that he loses the ability to honestly communicate his true thoughts and feelings. He thinks he can somehow win in life without actually putting in the effort to establish something real. And even when he does, and you will see this later in his life, he can't keep it. He can only be honest under perfect conditions. But as soon as there's a disturbance, he loses it. He wants a shortcut to everything. Whether it's getting rich or taking drugs, which are always a shortcut to a very short-lived happiness. The only thing we see him put effort into is manga. He even pulled all-nighters to draw them, while for everything else, he never even cared to lift a finger. The success he reached through his art is the only thing he ever got without lying. Usually he'd put so much effort into deceiving people to get what he wants, but this is the only time where he doesn't really do that. So that to me kind of stands out. And I'm really torn on whether or not he deserves our sympathy, because the fear of humans and the feeling that you're inadequate if you're being truly yourself is relatable, to me at least. There are terrible things that happen to him that are outside of his control, you know? And if you add that to an already fragile persona, it's a recipe for disaster. But throughout all of this, and judging from his own diary, he seems too self-aware not to make him responsible for at least some of the things that happen. The people around him keep saying that he's too good for this world, but I don't know if I agree. You know, he's just too sensitive for this world and so on. I think a lot of people can relate to the fact that simply existing, you know, the human condition is too unbearable. And I personally relate to that as well, which is why I think it's important to find something to channel all of this into, you know. And for a lot of people, that is art in some form or another. The important thing is that you're being true, but like that is a whole other video or discussion. But again, since I don't want to spoil anything, I really don't know how to talk about the story. But it's one of those stories that are kind of like Zankyo, which I did a video on, where if you're already hurt and then stuff outside of your control happens and then, you know, drugs get involved, and it just shows how quickly a single life can spiral out of control and can land you in a pretty shitty and dark place. And again, I feel like the main reason for Yozo being this way are really different in the manga and in the book. But for the book, it seems like his early life had him traumatized to the point where he doesn't even know how to act like a normal human being anymore. And in a sense, it's not an original thought, you know? Like, oh, somebody's traumatized and now look at all the dramatic shit he goes throughout his life and so on. But still, the way everything is depicted is just, it's so well done. And I read a lot of stuff like this, so I'm not super sensitive or whatever, but it's still, it stays with you a little bit. Because the manga is like 3 volumes, so it's not that long, but it feels so intense somehow. And Furuya is also a really funny person, so from time to time he puts in some gags, or not really gags, but some of the scenes are kind of funny, you know. And if you've read it already, you might know what I'm talking about, but that makes it even more enjoyable to me, because I love humor and I like using humor as a coping mechanism as well. I think without humor, nobody could live. You know, sometimes you just have to make fun of your own shit. And so reading something like that is really, it's just good to read. And it makes us feel less alone maybe. But yeah, since there's not really much else I can talk about without spoiling anything, this is where I'll end my thoughts. And when it comes to the art, it's by Furuya. So do I even need to say anything else? But with that being said, this is where I'll end today's video. Hope everyone has a great day and I will see you next week or something like that. All right, bye bye.